The thunder hit so close it shook the ground under my boots. 1 second the forest was just dark and quiet, the next it exploded with light, the sky cracking open like something alive up there was angry. I actually flinched, which was embarrassing, because Patrick was right behind me. "Okay," he said, his voice half laughing, half breathless. "I think that one was personal." I turned back, rain already starting to come down harder, soaking through my jacket. "You still think camping in October was a good idea?" He pushed wet hair out of his eyes, smiling like this was the best thing that had happened all week. "You're the one who said you needed a reset." "Nature." Silence. "No people." "Yeah," I muttered, looking up at the sky as another low rumble rolled over us. "I didn't mean aggressive nature." The problem was, we were farther from the trailhead than we should have been when the storm rolled in. The forecast had said light rain overnight. Not a full-on thunderstorm that turned the forest into a wind tunnel and the path into a mud slide. We picked up our pace, boots slipping on wet leaves, the air heavy with that electric smell right before the sky lets go completely. Another flash. Then thunder almost immediately. Patrick glanced at me. "How far?" 10 minutes, I said. Then, because I was honest, "Maybe 15. "Great." That's when the rain really started. Not a drizzle. Not even steady rain. It just dropped, like someone flipped a switch. Within seconds we were soaked, backpacks getting heavier, visibility dropping, branches whipping in the wind. By the time we reached the clearing, I was breathing hard and Patrick was laughing again, that slightly hysterical kind of laugh people do when things get a little too real. "There," I said, pointing. "Campsite. We'd been here before. Small clearing, decent ground, a little protection from the trees." "The problem?" "Only one tent was standing." "Mine." Patrick stopped next to me, staring at it through the rain. "Wait," he said slowly. "Where's mine?" I turned to him. "You said you packed it." "I packed the poles," he said. A pause. "Alexander. You said you had the tent." "I thought you had the tent." Thunder cracked overhead so loud it felt like the air itself jumped. For a second we just stood there in the pouring rain, both processing the same thing. One tent. 2 grown men. And a storm that wasn't going anywhere. Patrick looked at the tent. Then at me. Then back at the tent. "Well," he said finally, deadpan. "Good thing we're emotionally close." Despite everything, I laughed. "Yeah," I said. "About to get a lot closer." Patrick and I had known each other for about a year. We met at the climbing gym, both of us awkwardly waiting for the same route, both pretending we totally knew what we were doing. He was the kind of guy who talked easily, like you'd already been friends for months. Tall. Lean. Always slightly messy, like he'd just come from doing something active or interesting. We started climbing together. Then grabbing food after. Then weekend hikes. Somewhere along the way, he became the person I texted when something good happened. Or bad. He was also very, very straight. At least, as far as I knew. And I was very, very careful about that. Setting up the tent in the storm was chaos. Rain dripping down our sleeves, fingers numb, wind trying to flatten the thing before we could secure it. By the time we finally crawled inside and zipped it shut, the sound of rain on the fabric was almost deafening. For a moment, we just sat there, breathing, dripping onto the ground sheet. Then Patrick looked around. "This is a 2-person tent?" he asked. "Yes." Another pause. "This is a tight 2-person tent." He wasn't wrong. It was technically for 2. But the kind of 2 people who didn't mind being shoulder to shoulder all night. Lightning flashed outside, the inside of the tent glowing white for a split second. Then thunder rolled right after. Patrick exhaled slowly and leaned back against his pack. "Well," he said. "At least we're dry." Water dripped from his hair onto his neck. His shirt was soaked, clinging to his shoulders. I looked away quickly and started pulling out dry clothes from my bag. "Change," I said, tossing him a towel. "Hypothermia isn't romantic." He snorted. Wow. Didn't know you cared. I don't, I said automatically. I just don't want to hike out with a frozen body tomorrow. Fair. We turned our backs to each other to change, which would have been less awkward if the tent wasn't the size of a closet. Every movement bumped elbows, shoulders, knees. At one point he muttered, "This is the least graceful thing I've ever done." "You've seen me climb," I said. "That's not true." He laughed again. The storm outside got louder. Wind. Rain. Thunder rolling closer and closer. By the time we both crawled into our sleeping bags, the temperature had dropped enough that I could see my breath. Patrick shifted next to me. Then shifted again. "Cold?" I asked. "A little." Another long rumble shook the air. He hesitated. Then, quietly, "Hey, this is going to sound stupid." "What?" "Do you mind if I move closer?" "Just for warmth." My heart did something stupid and immediate. But I kept my voice normal. "Yeah," I said. "That's kind of how shared body heat works." He moved closer. Our sleeping bags pressed together. Then his shoulder touched mine. Another flash of lightning lit the tent. Thunder hit almost instantly. And this time, Patrick didn't move away. He stayed there. Close enough that I could feel the warmth coming off him. Close enough that every time the storm shook the world outside, I became very aware of how small the space between us really was. And the storm was only getting worse. I've never liked thunderstorms. Not because I'm scared of them exactly. I just don't like not being in control. And when the sky is literally tearing itself apart above you, there's not much you can do except sit there and wait it out. Another crack split the air so violently that the tent poles vibrated. Patrick took a deep breath. "Okay," he muttered. "That one was close." "Yeah." The rain hammered harder, like someone throwing handfuls of gravel against the fabric. Wind pushed against one side of the tent, bowing it inward for a second before it snapped back into place. Patrick shifted again. His shoulder pressed more firmly against mine. Then his knee bumped my thigh. He didn't move it away this time. "You good?" I asked quietly. "Yeah," he said. "A beat. I just hate not knowing where it's hitting." I turned my head slightly to look at him in the dim light. The only illumination came from occasional flashes outside, turning everything white for half a second before plunging us back into darkness. "You think we're in danger?" he asked. "No," I said immediately. "We're not the tallest thing here. We're not in a field. We're fine." He nodded. Another crack of thunder made him flinch again, just barely. That's when I felt it. His hand. It wasn't dramatic. He didn't grab me. Didn't clutch at my arm. He just reached out slightly in the dark, like he was orienting himself, and his fingers brushed mine. He froze. I froze. The contact was light. Barely there. But in that small space, with everything else so loud and chaotic, it felt amplified. "You okay?" I asked again, softer now. "Yeah," he said. But he didn't pull his hand back. Instead, his fingers rested against mine for a second longer. Then, slowly, like he was giving me time to react, he shifted his hands so our palms were side by side. Not interlocked. Just touching. The storm roared. My heart roared louder. I told myself it was nothing. He was stressed. It was dark. It was cold. This was about comfort. About grounding. Still. He moved closer. Not just shoulder to shoulder now. His entire side pressed against mine through the sleeping bags. "Sorry," he murmured. "You're just warm." "It's fine," I said. My voice didn't sound entirely steady. Lightning flashed again. For a split second, I saw his face clearly. Jaw tight. Brows slightly drawn together. Not playful now. Not joking. Just tense. Thunder hit immediately after, loud enough that instinct took over. Patrick's hand closed around mine. Fully. Fingers threading between mine before either of us could overthink it. The grip wasn't romantic. It wasn't hesitant either. It was firm. Grounded. Like he needed something solid in that moment. And somehow, that made it worse. Because I didn't want him to let go. We stayed like that. The storm outside raging. The world reduced to rain, wind, and the space inside this tiny tent. After a while, the thunder spaced out a little. Still loud. Still intense. But less constant. Patrick's breathing slowed. His grip on my hand didn't loosen. "You ever think," he said suddenly, voice low in the dark, "about how small we are?" I blinked. "In a storm like this," he continued, "it just reminds you." I swallowed. "Yeah," I said. "I guess it does." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "I don't like feeling small." The way he said it wasn't about the storm. I turned my head slightly again. "What do you mean?" Another flash of lightning lit the tent. This time I saw something different in his expression. Not fear. Something else. "Like," he hesitated. "Like things can change fast? And you don't always say what you're thinking." The thunder that followed felt distant compared to that. "What are you thinking?" I asked before I could stop myself. Silence. Rain pounding. His thumb shifted slightly against my hand. "I don't know," he said finally. But his body pressed closer. And closer. Until there was almost no space left between us at all. My heart was beating so hard I was sure he could feel it through the layers. He exhaled slowly. "You ever get the feeling," he said, voice barely above a whisper, "that you've been ignoring something?" Every instinct in me screamed to deflect. To joke. To make it lighter. But the storm outside had stripped something away. "I think everyone ignores something," I said carefully. He turned his head toward me. Even in the dark, I could feel it. "That's not what I meant." My throat went dry. Another rumble rolled across the sky, but this one felt far away. Inside the tent, the air had shifted. This wasn't just about thunder anymore. "Patrick," I said quietly. He tightened his grip on my hand for a second. Then loosened it just enough to slide his fingers over my knuckles. Not by accident. Deliberate. "Do you ever," he said slowly, "wonder what it would be like if you stopped pretending?" The world outside cracked again with light. But this time, the electricity wasn't in the sky. It was between us. And for the first time since the storm started, I wasn't sure which one scared me more. I didn't answer him right away. Because the truth? I had been pretending for a long time. Pretending I didn't notice the way he'd hold eye contact a second too long sometimes. Pretending I didn't think about him more than I should. Pretending I hadn't mentally drawn a hard line the day we became friends. Don't go there. He's straight. Don't ruin it. The storm gave us another violent crack of thunder, but neither of us flinched this time. All my focus was on his hand. Still loosely holding mine. Still warm. "Pretending what?" I asked, even though I knew exactly what he meant. He exhaled slowly through his nose, like he was steadying himself. "That I don't feel something," he said. My pulse slammed in my ears. "Something," I repeated carefully. He shifted slightly, turning more toward me in the narrow space. Our foreheads were almost level now, inches apart in the dark. "I don't know when it started," he admitted. "Maybe it didn't. Maybe it's just the storm. Maybe I'm just... Patrick." He stopped. The way I said his name must have landed differently, because his fingers tightened again. "You don't have to explain it away," I said quietly. Lightning flashed again. For half a second, I saw his face clearly. Not joking. Not teasing. Open. That look hit harder than any thunder. "I've been trying not to think about it," he said. "About what?" "You." The word landed between us, heavy and undeniable. My chest felt tight. "Since when?" I asked before I could stop myself. He gave a small, almost embarrassed laugh. "Probably since that hike in August." The one where you twisted your ankle? Yeah. I blinked. You were in pain the whole day. I know, he said softly. But you stayed back with me. Didn't make it a big deal. Didn't get annoyed. That's what friends do. Yeah, he said. That's what friends do. There was something in the way he repeated it. Another roll of thunder, but distant now. The storm was starting to move away. Inside the tent, though, everything felt sharper. I kept telling myself it was just admiration, he continued, or that I just really valued our friendship. And now? His thumb brushed slowly over the side of my hand. Now I don't think admiration makes your stomach flip. I swallowed hard. You've dated girls, I said, not accusing. Just stating reality. I know. You talk about girls. I know. You've never. I know. He cut in gently. Silence again. Rain, softer now. He shifted even closer. Our knees pressed fully together. His breath warm against my cheek. I don't have this all figured out, he said. I'm not suddenly rewriting my entire identity in the middle of a thunderstorm. A nervous laugh escaped me despite everything. Good, I said. That would be a lot. He smiled faintly. But I do know, he continued, voice lower now, steadier, that when you almost slipped on that ridge last month, I felt like I couldn't breathe. I remembered that. Loose gravel. One bad step. He'd grabbed my backpack and yanked me back before I even realized how close I was to the edge. You yelled at me for 5 minutes after, I said quietly. Yeah, he breathed. Because I was terrified. His forehead almost touched mine now. And I don't get terrified like that for just anyone. The storm outside had faded to steady rain. Inside, the air felt charged. Patrick, I said carefully, if this is just adrenaline. It's not. He didn't hesitate. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was simple. Certain. My heart pounded. Then what is it? I asked. He hesitated for only a second. I think, he said slowly, I've been trying really hard not to want to kiss you. The world went quiet. No thunder. No wind. Just the sound of rain. And my pulse. You've been trying not to, I repeated. Yeah. And right now? His breath caught slightly. I'm not trying very hard. That did it. Every carefully constructed boundary in my head cracked all at once. You're sure? I asked. Not because I doubted him. Because I needed to know this wasn't fear talking. He nodded once. Then softer. Are you? The question hit just as hard. I didn't need to think about it. I stopped pretending a long time ago, I admitted. The honesty felt terrifying, but also freeing. His hand left mine. For half a second I thought he was pulling away. Instead, it slid up slowly, fingers brushing along my wrist, my forearm, until his palm rested lightly against my jaw. He moved carefully, like he was giving me every chance to stop him. I didn't. Our foreheads touched first. Warm. Solid. Real. Then his nose brushed mine. A pause. One last breath of hesitation. And then, his lips pressed against mine. Soft at first. Tentative. Not rushed. Not hungry. Just real. Outside, the storm had finally started to drift away. Inside the tent, though, everything had just changed. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. His lips were warm from the cold air inside the tent, slightly chapped from the wind earlier. The kiss wasn't messy or rushed. It was cautious. Testing. Like we were both waiting to see if the other would pull away. I didn't. Neither did he. His hand stayed against my jaw, thumb brushing just under my ear. My hand moved on instinct, sliding from the sleeping bag to his waist, fingers curling into the fabric of his thermal shirt. The kiss deepened slowly. Not in a dramatic way. Just a shift. A soft exhale from him. A slight tilt of his head. It felt unreal and completely inevitable at the same time. When we finally broke apart, it wasn't because we wanted to. It was because we needed air. We stayed close, foreheads touching. The rain outside had softened to a steady rhythm. No more thunder. No more flashes of light. Just quiet. Patrick let out a breath that almost sounded like a laugh. Well, he murmured, voice low. That happened? I couldn't stop the smile tugging at my mouth. Yeah, I said. It did. He leaned back just enough to look at me, even in the dark. You okay? He asked. The fact that he asked that he wasn't just assuming, wasn't brushing past it, made something in my chest tighten in a completely different way. Yeah, I said honestly. You? He nodded once. Yeah. A pause. Actually, yeah? We both laughed quietly, the tension shifting into something warmer now. Not gone, just different. But then his expression changed slightly. More thoughtful. Alexander, he said carefully. The way he said my name made me straighten a little. This doesn't have to mean everything all at once. He continued. I'm not trying to suddenly redefine my whole life in one night. I know, I said quickly. I'm not asking you to. He hesitated. I don't want to wake up tomorrow and pretend this didn't happen. That fear was real. I could hear it in his voice. You think I would? I asked. No, he said immediately. No. I don't know what this makes me. There it was. The part that mattered. It doesn't have to make you anything, I said softly. It can just be something you felt. He was quiet for a moment. Have you? He started, then stopped. What? Have you known? About me? The question caught me off guard. Known what? He exhaled. That I'd feel like this. I shook my head, even though he probably couldn't see it clearly. No, I said. I've hoped. Sometimes. But I never assumed. He let out a slow breath. I've never felt this with a guy before. I figured. He huffed a small laugh. But I've never felt this with a girl either, he added. That one hit differently. The space between us felt smaller again, but not in a claustrophobic way. More like gravity. He moved his hand from my jaw, letting his fingers trail down slowly to my shoulder. Can I kiss you again? He asked. That made my heart stumble. You don't have to ask, I said. I want to. I nodded. This time, when he leaned in, there was less hesitation. Still gentle. Still careful. But sure. My hand slid up to the back of his neck, fingers threading into his damp hair. He made a quiet sound against my mouth, not loud, not dramatic, just honest. The kiss deepened again, and this time the warmth between us wasn't just about shared body heat. It was intentional. His legs shifted, brushing between mine in the narrow space. The movement was slow, exploratory, like he was figuring out what felt natural. Nothing rushed. Nothing pushed. Just two people in a small tent, finally not pretending. After a minute, he pulled back slightly, breathing a little heavier now. We're still in a storm tent, he murmured, almost amused. Technically, the storm's over, I said. He smiled against my lips. Still, there was a boundary there. An unspoken one. And I respected it. So did he. We stayed close, though. Arms wrapped around each other now, no awkward space left between our sleeping bags. His chest pressed to mine. My hand resting flat against his back. The kind of closeness that would have been unthinkable 12 hours ago. Are you going to freak out in the morning? I asked quietly. He was silent for a second. Then, no. Confident. Certain. I might have questions, he admitted. But I'm not going to pretend. That was enough. We lay there like that for a while, listening to the rain soften even more. At some point, his breathing evened out. He fell asleep first. Still holding me. And for the first time that night, my heart wasn't racing from fear or tension. It was steady. Warm. Because when the storm finally passed completely, he didn't let go. I woke up before he did. The forest was quiet in that soft, almost sacred way it gets after a storm. No wind. No thunder. Just the occasional drip of water falling from leaves. And Patrick's arm was still wrapped around me. For a second I didn't move. Didn't breathe too deeply. Because the memory of last night hit all at once. The confession, the kiss, the way he'd asked instead of assumed. It hadn't been a dream. His leg was still tangled with mine. His hand resting warm and solid against my back. He shifted slightly in his sleep, pulling me closer without fully waking up. My heart did that stupid, hopeful thing again. I'd always told myself I could handle being his friend. That wanting more was optional. That I was mature enough not to blur lines. But lying there like that? It didn't feel optional anymore. It felt real. He stirred a minute later, breath catching slightly as he woke. His hand flexed instinctively against my back before he seemed to register where he was. And who he was holding. There was a brief moment, just a flicker, where I braced for him to pull away. He didn't. Instead, he blinked a few times, looking at me in the soft gray morning light filtering through the tent. "Morning," he said, voice rough with sleep. "Morning." A beat. Neither of us moved. Then he smiled, slow, a little shy, but not panicked. "Okay," he murmured. "So that wasn't a storm hallucination." I let out a quiet breath of relief. "Nope." He exhaled slowly, eyes searching my face like he was checking for regret. "You good?" he asked. It was the second time he'd asked that since last night. And it mattered. "I'm good," I said honestly. "You?" He hesitated, not in fear, just in thought. "Yeah," he said finally. "I'm surprisingly good." He shifted slightly, propping himself up on one elbow but not breaking contact completely. "I was half expecting to wake up and feel like I needed to run 5 miles and rethink my entire existence." I smiled faintly. And I mostly just feel." He looked down at where our legs were still tangled. "Like I don't want to move." That did something to me. "You don't have to," I said. He studied my face again. "You're not pushing me into something?" he asked quietly. The question wasn't insecure. It was careful. "No," I said. "I'm not going to define this for you. I'm not going to label you. And I'm definitely not going to trap you in a tent in the woods." He huffed a small laugh. "Good." Silence settled between us again, but it wasn't awkward. It was reflective. He ran a hand through his hair, then looked at me again. "I don't know what this makes me," he admitted. "It doesn't have to make you anything today," I said. He nodded slowly. "But I do know something," he added. "What?" He hesitated only a second. "I've never felt calmer after doing something that technically should have scared me." That was honest. "And I've never wanted to kiss someone again this quickly." My stomach flipped. "Yeah?" I asked quietly. He answered by leaning in. This kiss felt different from last night. Less charged with tension. More grounded. Morning light. No storm. No adrenaline. Just him choosing to close the distance again. It was slower. Warmer. His hand resting at my waist now instead of hovering unsurely. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. "So what now?" he asked. There it was. The part neither of us could ignore. "We hike out," I said lightly. "We get coffee. We act like 2 grown adults who survived weather and feelings." He smiled faintly. "And after that?" I met his eyes. "After that," I said carefully, "we figure out what this means. Without pretending." He studied me like he was weighing something. "Are you okay if this takes time?" he asked. "Yes." "And if I ask dumb questions?" "Yes." "And if I panic a little?" I smiled. "Then we talk." He nodded once, like he needed to hear that. Then he surprised me. I don't want to lose you, he said quietly. The simplicity of it hit harder than anything dramatic could have. You won't, I said. He searched my face one last time. Then he pulled me into him again, not for a kiss this time. Just to hold me. Outside, sunlight started breaking through the clouds. The storm had passed. But something else had started. And this time, neither of us were pretending anymore. The hike back was quieter than usual. Not uncomfortable. Not tense. Just aware. The forest looked completely different in daylight. Sunlight cut through the trees in long beams, everything washed clean after the storm. The air smelled like wet earth and pine. Patrick walked slightly closer than he normally did. Not touching. Just close enough that our shoulders brushed once or twice on the narrow trail. Neither of us commented on it. About 20 minutes in, he broke the silence. So, he said casually, adjusting his backpack straps. If someone had told you yesterday that we'd be sharing one tent and having an existential crisis at midnight, what would you have said? That you forgot your tent on purpose, I replied. He laughed. I genuinely did not. I know. A beat. Then he added more seriously. I'm glad it happened. I looked at him. The storm? I asked. He gave me a look. You know what I mean. My chest warmed again. Me too, I admitted. We reached a small clearing where the trail widened, sunlight spilling fully across it. He slowed his pace and turned to face me. Can I ask you something without you overanalyzing it? He said. Depends, I answered. He rolled his eyes faintly. Have you liked me for a while? There it was. I could have dodged it. Made it lighter. But we said no pretending. Yeah, I said simply. His expression shifted, not shocked. Not uncomfortable. More like something clicked into place. How long? Long enough that I stopped counting. He blew out a breath. And you never said anything. You were dating Emily. He nodded slowly. And after that? You said you weren't looking for anything serious. That doesn't mean. I know, I said gently. But I wasn't going to risk what we had if I was wrong. He was quiet for a second. You weren't wrong, he said. The way he said it wasn't arrogant. It was certain. I felt that in my ribs. Does it bother you? I asked carefully. That I've known what I am for a long time, and you're just figuring this out? He shook his head. No, he said. It actually makes me feel safer. That surprised me. Why? Because you're not confused, he admitted. You're not trying to prove anything. You just are. The honesty in that hit deep. I don't need you to have answers right now, I said. He stepped a little closer. I don't feel confused about you, he said quietly. The distinction mattered. Just about what that means for the rest of my life. That's fair. He studied my face again. I don't want this to just be a storm thing, he said. It doesn't have to be. And I don't want it to feel like I'm experimenting with you. That one landed heavier. I wouldn't let myself be that, I said. He nodded once. Good. Then, almost shyly. Can I hold your hand? It was broad daylight. Open trail. No storm. No darkness to hide behind. I looked down at his hand. Then back at him. Yeah, I said. He reached out, slower this time, and laced his fingers through mine. The contact felt different in the daylight. More deliberate. Less shielded by adrenaline. We stood like that for a second. Two guys on a hiking trail. Hands linked. It felt bigger than the tent somehow. You okay? He asked again. I smiled. You're the one who keeps checking. He squeezed my hand slightly. Because I don't want to mess this up. You won't, I said. And for the first time since last night, I wasn't saying it to reassure him. I believed it. He stepped closer, lowering his voice slightly. When we get back to the car, he said, I'm probably going to overthink everything for like 20 minutes. That's your brand. He smirked. But after that, he continued, more serious now, I want to take you out. The words hit harder than the kiss had. On a date? I asked. He nodded. Yeah. A real one. No storm. No survival circumstances. My chest tightened. You sure? I asked. He didn't hesitate. Yeah. Then he added softer. I don't want this to be something that only exists in a tent during a thunderstorm. The clarity in that made something settle in me. Okay, I said. He smiled, not the easy gym smile. The real one. Then he squeezed my hand once more and started walking again, not letting go. The sun was fully out now. The ground still damp from the storm. And for the first time since we met, it didn't feel like we were walking in parallel anymore. We were actually walking together. The drive home felt different. Not dramatic. Not cinematic. Just aware. Patrick kept one hand on the steering wheel and the other resting loosely on the center console between us. Not touching me. Not pulling away either. We were quiet for the first few minutes. Then he exhaled slowly. Okay, he said. This is the part where my brain starts doing gymnastics. I smiled faintly. Overthinking window? Officially open. He drummed his fingers lightly against the console. So, he continued, glancing at me briefly before looking back at the road. Last night wasn't impulsive. I don't feel weird. I don't feel like I crossed some line I shouldn't have. That's good. But, he added, honest as always, I do feel like I just unlocked something I didn't know was there. That's not a bad thing. I know. He was quiet for a moment. I keep replaying it, he admitted. The moment in the tent before I kissed you. Yeah? Yeah. I remember thinking, if I don't do this, I'm going to regret it. That hit deeper than I expected. And now? I asked. Now I'm glad I didn't talk myself out of it. There wasn't hesitation in his voice. Just clarity. He pulled into a rest-stop parking lot and shut off the engine. The silence inside the car felt different from the tent. Brighter. Less hidden. He turned in his seat to face me fully. I don't want to rush this, he said. But I also don't want to pretend it didn't happen. I don't either. He nodded once. And I don't want to disappear for a week while I process. That made me smile. Appreciated. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling again. Alexander, he said carefully, I don't know what label fits me. I don't know if this means I've been ignoring something my whole life, or if this is just about you. I held his gaze. It can be about me, I said softly. It doesn't have to rewrite everything else. His shoulders relaxed slightly at that. I like that answer. A beat. Then, quieter. I like you? Simple. Clear. No storm to hide behind. No darkness to soften it. Just him, saying it in broad daylight. I like you too, I said. He studied my face, searching for any sign that I expected more than he could give. I'm not scared of you, he said suddenly. That caught me off guard. Good, I said slowly. I mean it, he continued. I'm not scared of what I felt last night. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not worried about what it says about me. That mattered. More than any dramatic declaration. I just need to move at a pace where I'm choosing it, he finished. You are, I said. He nodded. Then he did something small, but intentional. He reached over and took my hand again. Not hiding it. Not rushing. Just holding it. I meant what I said on the trail, he added. I want to take you out. I raised an eyebrow slightly. Define take me out. He smirked faintly. Dinner. Somewhere public. Somewhere not storm-related. Very brave. He squeezed my hand. I don't want this to only exist in a moment of chaos. I want to see what it feels like in normal life. That was the real test. Not the tent. Not the storm. But regular Tuesday evenings. Okay, I said. Let's do that. He leaned back in his seat, still holding my hand. I'm probably going to have questions, he admitted. About you. About what this means. About what you want. I'll answer them. And if I panic a little? We talk. He smiled softly. You're very calm about this. I've had more time to sit with it, I said. You're just catching up. He laughed quietly. Fair. There was a pause. Then he leaned over and kissed me again. Not heated. Not desperate. Just steady. When he pulled back, his forehead rested briefly against mine. I don't think this was just the storm, he said. No, I agreed. I don't think it was. He started the car again. As we pulled back onto the road, his hand stayed in mine for a few seconds longer before he shifted to drive properly. The storm had passed. The sky was clear. And for once, it didn't feel like something had exploded and left damage behind. It felt like something had cracked open and let light in. We had shared one tent during a thunderstorm. But what changed wasn't about rain or lightning. It was about the moment he stopped pretending. And I stopped pretending too. And this time, we were choosing each other in the daylight.